Hello Foxbody friends, on this video you're going to want to stay tuned because it is all about the power steering on our little EcoBoost project EgoBruise back here, so stay tuned. Yes, today it's all about the power steering. I'm going to go over everything we're going to be doing to include power steering into Project EgoBruise here. This is our 1979 Mustang Coupe with a 2.3 liter EcoBoost motor that we are slowly building. Okay, and I mean slowly because let me tell you something real quick, guys. Seriously, if you're here and you've been here long enough, you've been on the channel this long, and you've been this patient with me, I just want to thank you. I want to take 1 second here to thank you for sticking around because I know I'm not putting out content as much as all these other guys. Okay, this is not my full-time job. I do actually have a job that does require a lot of time, and on top of that, I purchased some land. Okay, I love my tractor, it's awesome, which is awesome. We're stoked about it, but yes, it needs work, and yes, it's consuming a bunch of my time on the weekends, especially when it starts getting cooler outside. But let's talk about this Mustang. All right, so Project EgoBruise here is slowly moving along. The last video, we did the cooling system. So we've got the custom radiator installed here from DeWitt's. It is a capless radiator. I gotta change something on this. This cap here, or this overflow tank, this expansion tank, bladder, whatever you want to call it here. I wanted to keep the factory style. Go back in that video. The last video, go all over the cooling system. But this is a little bit too high. I test fitted the hood, and yeah, sure enough, this cap is actually hitting the top of the radiator. It's about this much too high, so I need to lower this bracket down, which kind of stinks because it looks really nice. But yeah, so today we're going to talk everything about the steering. Now, I've got a lot of components. I've been saying we're going to start steering work here for a long time, but I want to go right into it. We're going to talk exactly what you need to get this thing set up for power steering, because as you know, these EcoBoost motors do not have a hydraulic. These EcoBoost motors do not have a hydraulic pump, meaning there's no way for me to plumb in Hydro Boost from the motor if I wanted Hydro Boost. I have a booster on here though. Or there's no way to also plumb in power steering. Now, I want to keep power steering in the car. I want this car to be drivable. I want it to feel modern. I want it to be nice and tight. I want this to be a really modernized 79 coupe here. I've spent so much time in the engine bay, I'm kind of over it. There's still so much to do. I've got to get the cross member created. I've got to finish up the heater tubing here. We got to do something with AC lines, run all the electrical for the computer here. And then I'm going to take all this stuff out. We're going to be doing body work on the panel here to smooth out where I've relocated the wiper. Check it out, it's right there. That's a cool video. Move that over to the side. Then we'll be painting the engine bay. Again, I've said this before, it's going to be painted avalanche gray, but we're going to get the engine bay painted so I can reassemble everything and start doing body work and paint on the car itself. But this is what we're going to talk about, and that we're going to talk about, and we're going to get straight to it. Finally, stop talking. Power steering, let's go. All right, let's just get straight to the meat and potatoes here. We're going to talk about all this, but first, let's just talk about my power steering setup. This is a rebuilt SN95 rack, okay, and because it is SN95, it has a different input shaft. We'll talk about that here in a second. I have the components to create or hook up our input shaft to the steering wheel, and then we got new end links I put on it, so I put some new end links on, and these are Steeda bump steer kits. So this is, of course, nothing is really tight and adjusted. It's just sitting on here, but this is a Steeda kit. It's very nice. And also we're going to go over this K-member. So if you go back, you got to kind of go back all the way to the earlier videos. This is AJE's modular K-member that they were so kind to let me have to trial fit and show you guys, put on my car. That is specifically built for the EcoBoost here. Actually, it's a modular, so you can swap out the motor mounts with any engine without swapping the K-member out. Their K-member on here, it being the EcoBoost, you can see that I've got a pretty decent gap here. I actually made this myself, so I had some clearance issues fitting this rack up to the K-member because I was hitting the oil pan down here. So the oil pan now has plenty of room, and I took it upon myself to put some offset bushings in the rack and some really thick steel spacers here. So I kind of sent all this information. I was talking to the engineer of AJE. Man, they were so kind to give me a kit based on what I've done here. So they've given me a kit that's a little bit better than my homemade one here. But anyways, I want you to know that they do offer now a kit if you're doing an EgoBruise swap. They offer the power steering kit because most guys are running a manual rack with these kind of K-members. I opted to keep the power. Because of that, I had some clearance issues right through here. I had to push the rack out and drop it up a little bit. So also because of that, you can't just go out and buy a standard Maximum Motorsports or something adjustable input shaft, because now that my steering rack is dropped and gone out, we're gonna have a custom shaft. Again, AJE said, don't worry about that, we got you covered. AJE, my friends over there, gave me again a input shaft adapter kit that we're going to look at here in a second and try to get this thing put on. So that wraps this up. Now, these are of course, your fittings here. They're capped. Let's go to this. This is what you guys want to see. This is I believe an 03 to someone, I don't know, 2000 and maybe 14 or 13 Volvo power steering hydraulic pump, electric hydraulic, okay? So what that means is we've got a reservoir that holds hydraulic fluid, and instead of being engine belt driven to a power steering pump, this is electric driven. So an electric pump creates hydraulic pressure. We have an output and we have a return. Okay, they make two versions of this. They make one with a reservoir and cap connected to one piece, so you could put this in the engine bay or you could put this somewhere else. And they make this kit, which I opted to get, which is a remote reservoir. Now guys, you can get these used. They're really actually inexpensive. I think I spent 120 bucks for this on eBay. And again, I think this is from an 04 or something, C70. Okay, yeah, so this came off of a 2004 to 13 C70 C30 S40 Volvo. Okay, so there you go. There's a whole bunch of different models that they make these in, but what's kind of cool about this, if you're not a fan of putting Volvo parts in your Ford, don't sweat it. You know why? Because back then, Ford owned Volvo. It's probably on the other side, but there is actually literally a Ford logo stamped straight into the side of this thing. So this thing has Ford parts all over it, even though this is a Volvo pump. So don't worry guys, you're still putting Ford stuff on your Ford, okay? All right. The bracket here, I fabricated myself. This came with a cage on it already on the pump itself, which is cool because it's rubber isolated. So this is going to keep a lot of the sound and vibration out in the frame, because on all 3 points here, we've got rubber isolation. So I went ahead and just utilized the stock cage that came with this, modified it with some brackets so that it's removable, and then I can replace the pump and use my brackets, but replace the pump if I ever had to. So I did that. We'll go ahead and cut to the building of this right now. So I think it came out pretty good. This is tying in to the same bracket that is holding the air box in place. So it's kind of sandwiched between the Scott rod panels. I was concerned about location of this, orientation, so that these lines were pointed towards the power steering pump. And I completely just forgot about, things like the wheel. So all said and done here, got everything finished, put the fender on, and realized the pump was about this far into the wheel well. So you're not gonna be able to even turn. So this is in a location where we've got all the room. The wheel well goes right here, okay? And you got plenty of room to turn your wheel on a full lock without hitting this pump. But hey, yeah, don't forget things like that when you're engineering brackets. So the top of the reservoir, I went ahead and made a bracket here. So, basically just took some cardboard and bent it up, kind of got what I wanted, put some notches in it. So this thing has some rubber isolators. The notches, slide up, the isolators slide up in the notch, and that way it stays nice and tight in here. So now I've got a place to service and fill up the power steering fluid from the engine bay if I needed to. And of course, it's going with a prop rod clip goes. We're going to be going with hydraulic assist rods anyways on the hood. So don't need that hole. Went ahead and used it for this purpose here. It's in a good spot. It's hidden, it's below everything, and what's good about this is I can still get the air box off to service the air filter, and this not being in the way. Now, it was tricky getting this through the firewall. And check this out. I ended up using this kit right here to dimple die a 1-inch hole into the side of the Scott rod panel. All right, you may be wondering how this thing gets power, how we're going to connect it, and lucky for you and me, there has been people who do this stuff for us. They make a kit. Yes, I bought this on eBay. This is a Volvo power steering pump install kit. It literally has your leads for your plus and minus and your key on power, along with your weather pack connectors that come factory with this thing. $72 here from Selectric Cool Connectors. Selectric Cool Connectors. So electric power steering, EPS pump and harness for Volvo and Ford Type 1 pump. There you go. All right, as far as the lines are concerned, you may have noticed that this is a line directly for, I'm going to put the part number on here. This is a specific connection that goes to this style connector here with a rubber O-ring on it. So this isn't a normal like pipe fitting or an AN fitting that goes into the pump itself. But what this is a special power steering type fitting that has an O-ring on the end of it that converts it to like a -6 AN fitting here. And for the power steering side, I've purchased the Maximum Motorsports here ST-73. That is a power steering fitting, stock rack fitting, dash in adapters line, so that this is supposed to be for our ST95 rack. So again, this comes with both fittings here to convert these to -6. So what we'll do is we'll do a normal barb style here for the return, for the -6 return, and we'll do a high pressure line. So let me show you that line, guys, because you need a special line. Don't be putting standard braided fuel hose. This is a -6 power steering hose, 6 feet, which is plenty. This is an Earl's hose. It's a 130606 part number, and this is from Earl. I got this from Summit Racing. That is 2,250 PSI to be exact, and it is a nylon braid. It's a very heavy hose, so super quality. That is a -6 hose. We're gonna be able to fit fittings on. I need to get fittings for it first. I did go ahead and purchase the Maximum Motorsports. However, once I test fitted this beast, this thing is badass. This still wasn't long enough to fit my setup here because of the way that the rack was pushed down. So that's when I purchased, or that's when I started talking to the guys at AJE, and they've given me this kit. So this is the same, really exact same setup. This is also the big, massive steering adapters that they gave me here. So this is basically recreating my steering steering spacer I put there. Their kit's way beefier, so we're going to swap out to theirs. Okay, man, I really like this. Again, thank you AJE for hooking me up with this steering shaft. What I like about it mostly is that it is adjustable for situations that I'm in where the rack is in a non-conventional location. You've got lots of play. You've got lots of adjustments here with the shaft going into the solid. This is a solid piece here. This is kind of how it's going to be laid out, and they include all these these locks with it, so you can get these things locked into place. But what I'm going to do is lock it in place and weld it. I'm going to weld the shaft here, the collar, to the U-joint here. So this is going to be a solid weld, as well as this is going to be a solid weld. That'll lock these two pieces together. This I probably will go ahead and weld as well. I know that may be overkill. We can weld this in, and then the adjustment is going to come into play right here between the shaft and this collar. And you'll be able to slide this in. Excuse me, I almost dropped the camera. Geez. Slide this in and out like this to adjust on the car, tying it down where I want it. And what we'll do is I'll mark it, and we can take this lock out, and what I can do is drill this. The instructions actually say to do this is to drill a kind of a hole. This is a solid shaft. You want to drill in just a little bit into the hole here, so that when this is in place, it's really locked in place. There's no way for this to slide in and out. So I've got AJE's input shaft kind of in place where I want it. You can see how much longer it is, and that'll get it nice and snug. So this is already hooked up to the ST95 rack here. And now what we need to do is really find center. I want to see where the center rack is. This doesn't matter right now because I'll pull this out and weld it. I'm going to show you how I find the center of the rack right now. All right, get on inside your port dirty EgoBruise here. Poor girl. Oh no, man, she's dusty. Look at that. It's a shame. Such a clean car. Anyways, it'll clean up. All right, we're going to turn the steering wheel all the way to one lock like that. Okay. I'm going to put a piece of tape right here. Doesn't matter, doesn't be perfect. We're gonna go ahead and mark a line like that. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is turn it the other direction. That's 1 full revolution. 2, and stop. Okay, so we're gonna mark the other revolution here. Now, since that's 2 full turns, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go 1 full turn, and then in between these 2 marks here, which is gonna be about, you know, right about right here. So here we go. We're gonna go 1, and right about there. Okay, so the steering wheel is upside down. This should be dead center on the rack. It looks pretty good. I eyeballed all my end links just by measuring them. Whenever I set this stuff up, just kind of measure the threads on both ends. Got them close, but that looks pretty center on that side as well as that side. So that is steering center. However, you can see my steering wheel is upside down. That could be because I have the input shaft in upside down. So what I can do now is pull the input shaft out, turn the steering wheel 180 degrees, put it back in. That'll get me closer. Okay, so I turn the steering wheel again 180 degrees just by loosening my input shaft, turning the wheel 180 and slipping it back on. Really simple. This got it close. So this is my, let me show you again here what I'm talking about here. So again, this is stopped in between our 2 yellow marks here. Stop right there. Mark it, just like we did there, which means 1 revolution, and then in between these 2 is going to be halfway. Okay, there's 1 revolution, and then in between those 2 is right there. So that is dead center on the rack. We can either pull the steering wheel and see if we can center this. I don't know if these 79s are keyed or not. We can find out. We can center the wheel this way, or we can center it, you know, by simply align it. Whenever we go get an alignment, all right, beef. So what I did is I went ahead and marked it there and right there. This side's going to be welded, this is going to be welded, and that's going to be welded, but I'm not going to weld it right here. So this is what's going to allow us to remove it and install it. So what we'll do is show you what I'm talking about here. Take off the factory bolt and loosen this up. Once we loosen this up, out of the groove we're going to drill into, that'll slide in place and remove just like that, and that's how we remove the shaft. So now just got to burn it all in. Alright, man, came out looking pretty good, I think. Just threw a coat of paint on the welds. That way, you know, keep some of the rust off of it, but we don't really have a rust problem here anyways. But yeah, I'm gonna go get this thing installed. Alright, steering shaft is on. It looks good. Now we're on to the fittings here, the AN fittings for my power steering rack. These Maximum Motorsport kit. It's really self-explanatory. I mean, there's nothing really to it here. There are 2 different sizes, and there are these pretty tough PTFE O-rings that you do have to get on there. I had to put this in a vise and kind of soften up the O-rings with some hot water to get this in. But we're going to put these on with some Loctite, and Maximum Motorsport says to tighten them down to, I believe, like 22 foot-pounds. I don't know if it's really a Loctite more than it is just a thread sealant, but we're going to put a little bit on here. I went ahead and put a little bit of lithium grease here on the O-ring so it doesn't bind up, and I put a little bit of that thread sealer also on the threads here. So this is not going to be tight. We just want this snug. And don't forget this is an aluminum housing, so don't go too crazy on it. But I do need some female AN fittings, so I think Connor and I are going to run up to Summit and get a few fittings. I'm going to get a 90-degree and a barb fitting so that we can put a barb fitting on the return for that right here, and then we can put an AN fitting with a pressure line just going to here to there, and then we'll route this some way up here on the frame as to hopefully not get away with the sway bar connectors. So we gotta kind of think about that. I know the sway bar will go here as well. So it's off the Summit. It's hot, but I guess we'll pull out old Blue here, take her. Why not? Say what's up, buddy.
What's up?
We're heading to Summit Racing and Pizza. Cruising the 086 here. Cold AC. Look at those temperatures. Isn't that nice? It is hot. Connor, what do you think about the 79? How it's coming along? This guy just cut me off.
I feel like the 79 is gonna be way better than this car, but right now I feel like this is the best car so far.
Okay, hey, that's an honest answer. I like it. It is going to be neat when it's done, though. There's no doubt. This car is still like, this car is awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps cutting me off.
It was your first Mustang.
Yes, it was.
Foxbody.
Foxbody. Another shout out to Black Fox EFI. My car is running awesome. Thank you for that. Check out what Connor and I found parked next to us here. I think it's pretty cool. 68 Galaxy 460 high rise tunnel ram. It's pretty neat, man. That's a big version of my Torino. A little rusty, but it's cool. What do you think about that, bud?
It's insane, honestly. It's
pretty cool.
It's cool. He's cute.
What'd you get? What are you holding?
Yes. We now have a Logitech shifter
For our
for
Logitech steering wheel and pedals, so we could play our Beam G and race on the computer. Now we have a shifter, so we can manually shift.
He's gonna teach me how to stick shift.
Yeah, man. Cool. Let's go home. Alright, that was a fun little road trip. So I got me some fittings here. I also found a battery box. So one of the perks about being near a Summit is they have a scratch and dent section. That's not even a section. They have a whole different part of the building that's a huge room full of scratch and dent. And this was almost half off. It's $50 for a battery box, and it's got all the hardware. There's nothing wrong with it. I have no idea what's wrong with it. It does, it's a battery box. It's the same exact one I run in here. Went ahead and picked it up because we're going to be putting the battery box in the back of EgoBruise. All right, anyway, back from Summit Racing. It's the next day, and it's important to note, very important to note, that these power steering lines are actually going to take a different AN fitting than your standard AN fittings. Power steering lines are specific. So this is an Earl's power steering line. Is specific to the Earl's line that I'm using. These are heavy steel lines, or stainless steel you can get them in, versus your aluminum. So these are much different than your standard AN fitting. These are meant specifically for very high pressure lines. They have a much broader collar than your standard AN fittings for a Dash 6. So when you make your power steering lines, you go out and buy high pressure power steering hose. You can't just go out and get your normal Dash 6 power steering, your normal Dash 6 type aluminum fittings that you would, from Summit or Jegs or anywhere else like that. You do have to get specific ones. I opted to go ahead and spend the money on the Earl's fittings so that is compatible with their hoses. We only have one high pressure line, so we only need two, one for each end. And we can use this line, or I can use a 3/8 line for the return. Haven't decided yet, but let's talk about how these go on right now. I went ahead and cut it to length. We're going to unscrew the collar. Very, very fine thread here. Look at that. See the difference? You must be asking, why do you have both, Mike? Well, it's because I made the mistake by going out and getting a standard A-in fitting dash 6, and then I realized that there's no way this is going to fit. Look at the diameter difference in this, okay? It's massively different from a standard like 3/8 hose dash 6 fitting. There's absolutely no way this is going to fit onto there. I mean, it's not even close. So that's when I started doing some research and realized I got the wrong fittings and I needed the correct ones. Went back to Summit yesterday, came back home, and next day here we are. So there's a big difference here. All right, so the way these work here is we are simply going to put this into my vise. Let's do it from the top here. And this collar is actually threaded. So what we're going to do here is we're going to firmly seat this in. And I believe it's reverse thread. Yeah, it is. Okay, so you want to spin this in the reverse direction. Spinning this counterclockwise. Man, they make it easy. So we're going to keep doing this until we can see the end of the fitting here and the line. We're about right here, almost there. Counterclockwise. All right, it is firm. It just stopped. This guy is, oh yeah, see? All right, taking just a dab of clean motor oil here. All right, this is gonna be probably the hardest part, is getting these threads to catch. So I like to put pressure on the top, pressing down, and then start screwing this in. And you're gonna wanna do this till it bottoms out. There we go. And it just bottomed out. So that is, there we go. Now do it on the other side. Oh yeah. All right, for the return line, I got some leftover 3/8 silicone hose here. I think it should work perfect here. And I'm not gonna put hose clamps on it now because I'm not gonna run it, but all right, man, this looks pretty good. Kind of ignore the routing right now. I know there's going to be a sway bar here. I want to keep it loose and not cable managed or tied up yet, nice and neat with zip ties or anything like that, just because I know there's going to be some equipment there and I want to be able to move it around before making anything permanent. And this way everything is still just mock-up, because again, once this car, the engine bay is done, which is about done, this is probably the last piece other than the ECU over there. Everything's going to come out for paint and body, and then everything's going to be permanently installed, including the K-member brakes and everything else. So right now everything is still kind of in a mock-up stage, but man, this is a win. So let's talk about the electrical on this real quick. Electrical side, this is a freaking great harness. Now again, I got this from eBay, and it is like, man, it's some thick wire. So guys, this is a no-brainer. Clearly, you've got your black and red here for positive and negative. These are going to go straight to a battery lead. You want this fused. So what we're going to end up doing is running it up here, putting a breaker box, up here probably, or maybe even along this bar right here or something. It's just a breaker box up here to hold this in place. This will tie into the battery system directly. And then this is your key on. So it comes with 3 cables. I believe there is a CAN bus positive and negative. So there's 2, like a return and a send, unit for the CAN bus side. That's these back 2. The one we're all really going to be worried about here is the yellow and gray one. This is the exciter. So this actually turns on. You can put this on a switch in the cab if you want to turn on, your pump on and off. Or like me, I'm going to run this to a key on source up in here, up in the wire harness. So this will be tied into a key on source, and this will be tied directly to the battery. But I thought if you guys want to hear it run, we can do that. Even though I don't have any fluid in it, you probably shouldn't do that. This thing is good. We're going to run dry for just a couple seconds just to show you kind of how quiet it is. So let's see if we can get it running real quick. Isn't that cool? That's it. That's the only sound it makes. So it's isolated. It's in the rubber isolation cage here. Shouldn't really hear it once it's inside the fender well and we have sound deadening stuff back here. It's gonna be nice and quiet. So I like this mod so much. I really want to do it to this one to get rid of the stupid, Ford power steering whine that everybody so much just absolutely loves. But this to me is progress, man. Okay, we've got the adapter put in place here. We've got the steering shaft hooked up, so we've got actually, you know, everything connected to the wheels. Got this hooked up. I'm ready to do wiring. All right, guys, that's a wrap. I got a lot of cleanup to do. I want to get this car cleaned up and maybe roll it out and get everything power washed, clean it up. But hey, I hope you liked this video. That wraps up the power steering and steering here on Project EgoBruise, so that is a huge plus, okay? One little milestone at a time is all it takes to get this car completed. I've got lots more work to do, and I got a lot more content coming to you, I promise. Thank you for being so patient, guys. I've been insanely busy. My job keeps me very busy. Our land keeps us very busy. My truck back here has been breaking down on me. I'm replacing headers on it for the header leak from the EcoBoost on my 2016 F-150, and we're doing work on my wife's car. I got a video coming out on it, replacing the you know, shocks, springs, and struts in the front. Kind of getting a new ride, so that's kind of cool. That's coming out as soon as we get done with it. As soon as it cools off, we can finish that up too. So hey, lots coming. Follow me on Instagram. Make sure to go to houseofdoula.com. That's everything in one spot, the Instagram feed, link to the Facebook group, and other crap, all the videos and merchandise, stuff like that. So hey, thanks for watching. Be patient, keep wrenching. Don't stop wrenching on these Foxes. Keep the love going with these cars. They're awesome. They're so much fun to work on and drive. So hey, we'll see y'all next time, very soon, I promise. Take care.